What's going on, everybody? And welcome to Event Marketing Redefined. I am your host, Matt Kleinrock, CEO of Rockway Exhibits and Events. And today we have an episode and we are going to be talking with Sam Zelitch. He is the community manager for Squarespace. And much of our conversation today will revolve around a virtual event that he runs for Squarespace. And we are, of course, going to talk a little bit of community. Sam, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you so much, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Let's do it. I want to first start with your background a little bit, right? You are a community manager for Squarespace right now. You do run a virtual event for them, but give us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of people I know in the community management event space, I really fell into it. I started making written content and social media. And when I realized that there was a greater need in events and running and producing events, it really fit together with my background in theater. And I was able to find a more defined and stable path through doing events.
That's interesting with the theater. How have you found that connection, right? Like what's helped you from theater to events?
There's a thing I say a lot in working with my team. I say that's showbiz. And I think that kind of encompasses how theater is helpful, a background in theater or any kind of show business, really. But a lot of people that I work with don't have a strong background in theater or show business. And as a result, they're thinking about things, hoping that things will run in a straight line, hoping that things will just kind of happen. And I think the things that they get nervous about are not necessarily the things that I get nervous about. And so when something happens that might seem like it's going to go haywire or might seem like it's going to throw a wrench in everybody's gears, a lot of times what I'll just say is that's showbiz. And it's proven to be true. I think I can think some more specific examples, but in a lot of cases, I think tech just expects things to be a certain way, and showbiz, that background in theater, I think allows me to relax in a lot of situations where other people with a more formal tech training might freak out.
Nice. I like that. Yeah, I think there's this badge of honor in events and event planning of dealing with chaos, right? I know a lot of really high level event marketers that I've spoken to, and they recognize that chaos, but they've gotten really good at minimizing it. But then also, like you said, a big piece is, what will go wrong will go wrong. It will happen. Stuff does happen. It's a big moving target events, and you have to be ready to handle them. What would you say is your biggest struggle as a community manager?
Definitely showing how fun can be important and should be valued. I think, unfortunately, most of the people who make decisions about an event aren't going to attend it. That's just the reality. And that's why I always say it's important for you to document your work, photos and video, even just writing out the process so that people know, because that will highlight the best parts of it and allow you to show stakeholders later how much fun it was, and people smiling and also attributing their good time to product adoption or whatever your KPIs are.
I love that you talked previously when you and I have spoken about fun, right? And what I find fascinating is I think when I hear fun, I think experience. There's no fun time I've ever had in my life that wasn't an experience, whatever it may have been. So another thing that I tie this to is I keep hearing from more conversations I've been into is that a lot of the attendees at events, the more buying power is coming from millennials and Gen Z now. They're becoming of that age where the buying power is getting to their hands for these events. And the data just clearly shows millennials and Gen Z are looking for experience. So to me, fun, experience, millennials, Gen Z, sorry, a little bit of a changing time here. So I think you're onto something there.
Yeah, I was just reading something about how millennials report that they prefer physical books to ebooks, which I'm not millennials, actually, this was Gen Z. I think I'm a millennial and my generation is much more like ebooks. I think people ebooks were created for us, right? But Gen Z, they love physical books. And I think doesn't come so much of a surprise, because I think that weirdly, Gen Z, who's grown up with the internet, has such a value in tactile, real experiences. I think that they have a much better sense of what is real, weirdly, growing up in a digital environment.
Yeah, that's a really cool point. It's kind of like how like the records and the vinyls are coming back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they're like a lost art. You see one and people are like, what is that? You know what I mean? So
I mean, look, I've got my record collection right here. Records have never gone. Like, this is
very cool. Yeah. Very cool.
To me, they're one of those things. I think with just talking about like where Gen Z's head is at, I think it's sort of the thing where they value the experiences that have never died. They value the things like, physical books and LP, which these are things that last. Like, the fact is that a good experience and a fun memory is something that is going to last in someone's head. And just going back to fun, I think that's why fun is so important, and also why it's really, really hard to show the value of fun, because it's such a long tail.
Yeah, it is hard to show the value. I know you and I could go down this rabbit hole of the value or the ROI of fun. I think it's there. I think it's a part of the future. So I love that you're thinking about it. I think you need to keep plugging into it. What does it look like? I don't know if there'll ever be measurement, but there is like measurement, in my opinion, is a really broad term in the event, trade show, activation world, right? And it just needs to be, can you tie things to business initiatives, right? Because obviously you're hosting an event, you're doing an activation, whatever it is, to add to business initiatives, right? So if a business initiative has to do with the customer and customers appreciate experience, well, then fun can somehow tie into that when you're at events. It can bolster the experience. It can bolster the networking, the relationship, the especially with a big brand like Squarespace, the fondness of it, like what somebody thinks when they hear that name. So I think you should stay on it. I really do.
Appreciate that. Thank you for your support.
Nice. Yeah, man. Yeah. Need my support on the fun. Biggest accomplishment so far for you?
Yeah, 100% it is Circle Day. So Circle Day, we had our first one last year. It was the first ever professional conference at Squarespace. We had 200 people come to our headquarters in New York, and we had 1,600 people join us online as part of an online live webcast experience. Had a group of people who had never done anything like this before. We didn't even hire a professional events company. It was a shoestring budget. And I think just by working with fun people and by providing a venue for people to create an experience, that itself formed into a awesome experience. We got fantastic reviews. The whole company was talking about it. We tripled our budget this year. It really is like, I mean, that I think is a case example of documenting your work, believing in fun, and just kind of believing in showbiz, believing that it's going to all come together, the faith in it all coming together, not worrying so much about every single thing that could go wrong.
I think that's a great point. I'm curious, before I say what I'm going to say, I'm curious, what's the why, or what was the intention behind that event when you set out to do it?
Yeah, it's really engagement. We have a giant community, tens of thousands of professional designers all around the world, people working on Squarespace because maybe they've used other platforms before, but to them, Squarespace allows them to do the thing that they do best, which is design or coach or teach or whatever the thing it is. They can design a website professionally, make a business off of it, and Squarespace just kind of steps out of the way and makes that part of it easy. What we want to do with this community, though, is continue to provide opportunities for them to meet each other, to engage, to stick together, and to remember that we're the best. That like not only are we the best platform out there, but we can be thought leaders in the space of design. And maybe we're not always the number one people when it comes to every aspect of design, although we have a really talented creative team and I trust them with pretty much any question that I have related to design. But we, in addition to that, know people in this community, and we can bring them, if we give them 45 minutes or an hour to talk on a stage about working with clients or copywriting or building out a process for your first $10,000 business like that. These were real talks that we had last year. That's something that we can do that nobody else can do. And I think that we made that point very clear. People were just singing our praises on their way out the door and asking us, what do we need to do to get Circle Day to come back? We just announced that it's going to come back in August, actually, and there will be a non-Circle member component. So you don't have to member the community to join the online version of it as well.
Good for you. I think that's awesome. I love how, just a note for my listeners here is like, I love how I just asked Sam, what is the why? What is the intention? What is the purpose? And he just rattled off all kinds of stuff. And I just am such a firm believer in that, Sam, like that you have to have an intention and a why. And when you can do that, it becomes easier to create a good event, a great event, a good user experience, a good attendee experience. It just does, because you know what you're trying to do. You know what success may look like, or what you're trying to make it look like. And then I'm sure now moving into this year, there's a lot of adjustments you're going to make. There's some changes you're going to make because you have that feedback. But if you start out doing something without a finished point, finished direction, it then becomes really hard to make changes, but when you know the why and you know the intention, it can go well. And then you can keep making changes and adapt. Love it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I try to keep it simple with whys. I tend to think that the question why can be answered by one of two things. It's either you're doing it for love or you're doing it for money. In this case, we were looking to build the business. We were looking to get people continuing to build their businesses on Squarespace. So that was definitely a money aspect of it. And I had to keep that in mind as part of my job. I can never forget that I work for a business. Of course. And that, I'm there to continue to build that business. But I did reach a point last summer where we were in the thick of everything. We had our chaotic moments. I had grown so much as an events producer just by trials and tribulations, had to react to negative feedback and grow myself. And there was a point where I started to realize, I really love this. That this is something that even though I have to keep those KPIs in mind, I could be working multiple weekends for this, which I did. And I didn't complain because I was just, every minute of it was just a joy.
Nothing wrong with that. Like the capitalism side of it. Like, look, that's the reality of the situation. Right. And, everything has to tie back to business initiatives, business objectives. Otherwise, what are we doing here? Right. What I heard about everything you said in that why the event is value to the customer, value to the audience, value to the community is honestly a lot of what it sounds like you guys are in there trying to provide. And I think when that's a focus, not that it's hard to miss, but you're going to put on a great event. So good for you guys.
Yeah. Thank you.
What keeps you up at night as a community manager, as an event manager, community manager? What keeps you up at night?
Oh my gosh, as an event manager, I mean, just as a person, the first half hour of the original Evil Dead, directed by Sam Raimi. But
mine's that whole balloon in the street thing, just can't get it out of my head.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can't think too much. I can't think too long about that one either. Let's see. I don't know. As an events and community manager, I think. And also just as a person who's suffered from lifelong social anxiety, I think I just have this fear that everybody hates me. and I think that, I have to, as an events producer, you do have to accept that at some point you're going to be the target of negative feedback, as I said. Yeah. And one lesson that I've learned a lot is how to handle negative feedback. And I'm proud that that's something that I've learned, how to take negative feedback and to grow with it. And I think that, and learn that it's not personal. But I think when I'm really thinking about what keeps me up at night, I'm starting to think about gosh, I'm a totalitarian dictator and nobody wants to be doing this. Everybody hates all the stuff that I'm doing. They hate my design plans. They hate my production ideas. And knowing what I know about years of therapy, once you get into that rumination cycle, it's hard to get out of it and you can't sleep. But I do recommend, if anybody's staying up late at night, you go to therapy or find some way to do some deep work to think through those things and work on them in a healthy way.
All good advice.
Yeah.
All good advice there. Let's talk a little bit about community. Tell me why you think community, it is a trending, I don't want to call it trending, but it's a trending topic. It's new-ish when it comes to social, and then the term in which it's used, and then the way that now businesses are creating community, thought leaders are creating, community, people are attaching themselves to things. So why do you think community is important?
I used to be a social media manager. That was where I was really starting out in community, but I didn't know that it was community. And one of the things I hated about being a social media manager was that I felt like I had to read every single tweet. That, to me, once I started to move into community, showed me exactly what the value of community was. Because what you do when you build a community is the goal is to bring people off of Twitter and to bring them into your own central social media system, whether it's a Twitter subgroup or a Discord channel or wherever you're building your community. There's going to be less competition for people's attention. And especially if you can create a kind of self-generating community, which of course is always the goal, to create, community created content, getting people to help each other and talk to each other, then that is what keeps people out of the noisy spaces where they're getting messaging from elsewhere that you don't want to get them from. It's a way for you to hone your message and to focus people's attention on what you know to be important and what you know to be true.
Yeah, I really like what you said there about less competition for attention, right? Yeah. Communities are interesting to me, and just hearing what you said is like, it has changed, it has evolved, right? With social, with the internet, the capabilities of things like Slack and Discord, Facebook groups, all of that. And what's fascinating to me is that at the end of the day, basic human needs, everybody has the need to belong to something. Everybody wants a sense of belonging. So I think there's this real affinity. There's this real emotional attachment where communities, I think, separate themselves. So if you have a chance to build community, do it. It's something that, with what we're talking about with events, is when you have the community, you can really leverage events versus the other way around. If you don't have community, but you want to make it an event, it's far more difficult than if you have the community already to leverage into events.
Yes. And that's what has been true about my career at Squarespace. Yeah. I've built communities before, and I'm very lucky with Squarespace and the Circle Day that I didn't have to build that community. It was kind of already there for me. I did have to do some work to kind of shape the events around what the community needs were. But I will say that even if somebody doesn't have a community at all, if they're starting at community zero, there's still no better way to build a community than having events, in my opinion. And I'm definitely biased, you're definitely biased, but I do think that it is still worthwhile to have an event that just 5 people attend, and continue to do it and not give up on it after those 5 people attend, just because I can think of no better way, just in my experience, of seeing things grow and encouraging things to grow than having the regularity of events.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because it's like, when people do continually show up somewhere, they're showing up for a reason. They're showing up for either value, sense of belonging, like what are they feeling? What are they getting educated on? Why are they there? You find yourself like, even when I go to events, ones that are larger, one of the things I always ask people is not, what do you do? I always ask, why are you here? That's always one of my openers. There's some people that are, they laugh. They're like, whoa, like, what I mean? But I'm like, no. Like, what's your interest in this event? Like, what brought you here? Right. Yeah. And it always kicks off great conversation, and you end up meeting more people like yourself because you're there.
I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah. That's a great question to ask. I'm going to use that at my next conference, I think.
Yeah.
Why are you here?
Well, I would say you can soften it with what brings you here or what brought you to this event. I was like, what are you doing here? People, let's talk a little bit about, well, we kind of flip-flopped here. We talked a little bit about how community helps events, but how about like how events help community just in general?
Yeah. So how events help community? I mean, I view everything like an event. A Slack thread is an event, a meeting is an event. They're just this like magical cauldron where community is alchemized. And I don't always claim to know exactly how it happens, but it is in some ways, it's a little bit magical, right? And like you were saying before, like you bring people come together. If people are together someplace, then they have a purpose. There's some answer to the question why that they can think about. And just even as an example, as like a very boring example, think about a meeting that you have on your calendar every single week. It could be something boring. It could be a sync with your team that just is a stand up and you're just running through things.
Yeah.
Even if it's not a fun event, even if it's not something that like is, the talk of the town after you come out of it, if you have that event every week or every month or whatever, there's going to be some community that develops out of that. You're going to start to see things grow. You're going to start to see, people knowing each other's names and people pronouncing each other's names wrong. You're going to see like rituals and frenemies and lessons that you weren't expecting to learn and recommendations for movies and books. All these things happen just because you had that event with a regularity on the calendar. So to me, if you want to build a community, you have to have some kind of event. It almost doesn't matter what event it is, but just have something with regularity where a group of people with some vague common purpose are coming together. And I promise you, some kind of community is going to develop out of that.
Do you have any maybe advice for people that are starting out, right? On either trying to build community or trying to get an event going off the ground level?
Don't question it too much, because we all have access to these tools now. Zoom is not all that expensive. It's about the price of Netflix, I think, or maybe even less. I don't know. And the Discord is even cheaper if you want to set up a Discord and do video there. I mean, not to plug anybody over the others, but there's tons of them. You look up, like community building tools out there. There's tons and tons and tons. And I think that the only thing that is in your way is the time commitment. But if you can get something on the calendar regular and start talking to people about, hey, this is a thing, I want to bring people together for regularity for this reason, play a card game, talk about movies, whatever it is, commit to the regularity of it, you're going to develop a community around it. And at the very least, you'll learn something about building community in that experience.
All right, let's talk a little bit about your event, right? Yeah. Let's talk about Circle Live. So tell us about the event. What does it look like? How many people, virtually, in person? Let's do a little bit of run through for people.
Yeah, so Circle Live, kind of an outgrowth of Circle Day. So our community is called Squarespace Circle, I should say. If you go to circle.squarespace.com, you can find out all about becoming a Squarespace Pro user. Our blog is there. You can sign up for the newsletter, all great stuff. But Circle Live is kind of a member exclusive benefit. It is a monthly live talk show, not dissimilar from what we're doing right now. I show up on an online video platform with my co-host, Sarah Graysdorf, my beloved colleague of many years. And we interview either a member of our community or someone else sort of vaguely related to our ecosystem about an area of interest to our community. I got to say, Matt, it's very similar to what you're doing here. And our goals, I imagine, are very similar. It's all about just providing a space for people to engage as much as they want to. I think that prior to Circle Live, we were doing much more like workshop-y, interactive. You have to commit this amount of time to it. Circle Live is you just show up for 45 minutes and you can listen, you can talk, or you can get some work done while you're listening. And if something happens to you by osmosis, if something happens to reach your ear by osmosis, that it's like, this is a valuable lesson, it's going to happen.
Yeah. I like that. I like the concept of that. I mean, we've been doing something similar with this. We do one every 2 weeks, actually trying to shift it to get more Q&A on it. So if you have any advice on that, let me know. Because I like what you're saying. You're giving people the options to show up, fully engage, sit back. People like options and they like to educate themselves or be involved at their own pace, which I think is really cool. What about Circle Day? Tell me a little bit more about Circle Day.
Yeah, so Circle Day is just a yearly conference. And last year it was 200 people in person and 1,600 online. We're hoping to hit that 200 mark again for in person this year. August 24th is the date. And we are going to see, I think we're hoping for like 4,000 people online to attend. Same kind of thing where it's like talks, conversations, fireside chats, networking opportunities. I'm going to create an interactive game experience that people can do, like a card game over the course of the day. It's a lot of fun. And this year, we're like really just we're trying to up the fun. We're trying to up the experience. We've hired a full production company to help us with it. And just the goal, bringing people together, getting them engaged, showing them that Squarespace is not only the best platform out there for you to build your web design career, creator career, entrepreneur career online, but also it's the best community to be a part of if you want to really commit to it.
Are you guys viewing the in-person experience and the virtual experience? There's a lot of people that call that like a hybrid event, right? But essentially, some of the thoughts I've gotten from people running these events and the conversations we have is that they really are they are different because the experiences are so different. So have you guys thought about kind of what those two different experiences look like for the two different audiences, one in person, one virtual?
Yeah, definitely. Anything that happens in a video setting is competing with TV. So the way to make it more of an engaging online experience, in my experience, is to take notes from TV, take notes from live streamers, take notes from podcasters. You have to create something that is entertaining in a screen-based platform. You are not going to you're not going to get people to come out for your online event, your online video event, by calling it an online conference. Nobody wants to attend an online conference. Nobody wants to attend a webinar. They do want to watch a fun, engaging TV show. They do want to listen to a podcast. And if it's live, they may be interested in it. And I think that there's ways that you can sort of seed that. So we are going to have like I'll be hosting online, sort of like as an MC, getting people through, talking, like having sort of live conversations, doing a little bit of like, Oscar red carpet work, that kind of a thing. But it's, the in-person experience, I think, is, it's theater. It's you've got to get people in 3 dimensions. Show people that this is a person that after they get off stage, they're just a person that you can network with, you can talk with. Less of an opportunity there with online, I think, that people see. I think that with online, it has to be much more TV, live stream, podcast, media stuff.
I like that comparison, right? With like the TV online meet, like of what the experience has to look like. I think that's cool. And I think the fact that you're separating them, making them look different, but it's the same event, per se, but the experiences are different, is spot on. What do you think your attendees, your guests, what do you think they're really looking for? What do you think they're really coming for?
Interpersonal interaction, connection.
Okay.
I think that's the thing that we've heard time and time again that people want, is they want to make a connection. A lot of these are freelancers. A lot of our folks are, small business owners. They're working from home. They're working from their own, rented workspaces. Some of them don't even have teams. Some of them are agencies. We do have some like larger agencies, so they'll have people to interact with, but even those teams will be distributed. There's one Circle member who lives in Cyprus, but she's got team members in Greece and Finland. So it's really, an opportunity, if they want to come to the in-person version, to attend something that promises other people there, that there's going to be other people that they meet that maybe they've met online, or maybe they've admired their work online, and they get to meet them there. The online experience, I think we're still developing our sense of what it is. I think it's less defined, or it's less clear, but what I the theory that I went into this year with, and part of the reason that I started developing Circle Live, the monthly talk show, is I think people want, as you were saying, they want choice. They want, with their online content, they want interactivity in the sense that they get to choose how much they commit to these events. They want to have an option that is low commitment, like a talk show where you're just kind of listening to it. It could be white noise if you wanted to, as well as an opportunity to learn. So we offer like demos. We're building out like a system of workshops to actually teach people stuff online, because the reality is that's how you reach the widest audience, by having an online offering. But I think that trying to combine all of those needs together into one online event, which we were kind of doing before, that's not what people want.
You know, when you say interpersonal connection, right? For the in-person, like that's our space. That's what we're constantly talking about. So I think it's good that you have the in-person nailed, or that you're like, hey, this is why we're pretty sure this is why most people are coming. And for the virtual, the fact that you can even say that we're not 100% sure, all it tells me is that you're going to figure it out because you're curious. Yeah. Whereas most people can give you some party line, some BS of like, oh, this is what, but they don't really know. So I think that's cool. The interpersonal connection to me really makes me think like networking, community, relationships, discussions. And the last, and I think is the most cool that I'm hoping to see events lean into, is collaboration. So how can you get people showing up somewhere together, like where they can collaborate? Can they work in a think tank room with each other for an hour in a 10-person setting? What are those discussions? Are there roundtable discussions led by an industry leader, led by yourself? Like those are the things that people don't get, because you can do it on Zoom, but not as well as you can do it in person. Like if you're a designer and you use Squarespace, right? And you're telling me that I can go to New York, I can come to an event, and then I'm going to be able to sit in a room with 10 other high-level designers that are using Squarespace and have a discussion about trending things and topics and ask questions to my peers. That to me is just a home run. It really is.
Exactly. Yeah. And setting out to do Circle Day, I never knew what it was going to be. I never knew. I had a vision, but I never knew how easily it was going to catch on. And I think for exactly the reason that you say, people came out for it. People flew in from New Zealand. That was like the furthest we got people from. Like people were cool. So excited to just be here and on their own dime and just be with each other. Yeah.
Very cool. I love hearing that. The fact that people travel, go seeing each other. I always look forward when I travel, I'm in the industry, but I travel on my own to events. I love it. I love going to different cities. I love going to have conversations with people, like I have an event that's my industry. And one of my favorite things is just talking to other CEOs, talking to other people there that are running businesses just like mine, right, or suppliers of ours. I mean, those are some of the best conversations. They are. Absolutely. They're just some of the, your guard's down a little bit, you're hanging out, you're having a drink, you're getting lunch, dinner, coffee, whatever it is. And you can really kind of soak each other in and just talk about what's happening in the world. I love that stuff. I think it's great.
Yeah, this is why I think that the metaverse will never replace real life. This is like a real theory that I have about events, is that they can do fancy audio stuff, they can do fancy visual stuff. They are nowhere near figuring out the science of replicating smell or taste. And I do believe that when you meet a person, this is why the cosmetics industry is multi-billion dollars, because there's a smell that people have, and there's a smell to an environment. There's just kind of a, like, you meet somebody, you sort of pick up their vibe, their aura, their smell. That's all that contributes to how you interact with this person. That contributes to maybe working in a different way or working with a different kind of person than you wouldn't normally. And I just think that you miss a lot of that. You miss all of that. You can't smell somebody on the other end of a video call. I don't know, Matt, if I met you and I didn't like your smell, maybe I wouldn't be doing this show right now. I'm just saying.
That's a great point. I mean, yeah, what it makes me think is, like, I think one of the best things that could happen for events was virtual and Zoom, and the COVID pushing it over the ledge metaverse, all these things. I think it's one of the best things that could happen for events, because I think events got lazy. I think trade shows, events, experiential, the whole thing got lazy. Right. Conferences got lazy. They were like, they'll show up. We'll just grab some, and now it's because there's the virtual option, because there is metaverse, because there are these things that will, in theory, challenge events. I think it's making events double down on what makes them great. It's interpersonal connection, networking, community, discussions, collaboration, being face-to-face, being in a moment, going on a hike in the morning in California with a group of people that you don't know just to kick the day off. Just though you can't do that thing in metaverse. You can't. It's the same way how, with what you're saying, how the Atlanta Braves created a metaverse for their new stadium. Very cool idea. The stadium's incredible, but it is cool. But there's nothing like you and I going to where the Braves play, getting a beer, having a hot dog, whatever it is that people eat or don't eat nowadays, and go watch a baseball game and be in that stadium. What if it's a night game? What if it's when the sun is setting? The feeling of being in a professional stadium when the sun's going down, or a night game with the lights on. There's nothing like the smell of the grass, the sounds. You cannot replicate it. It doesn't. So it's allowing events, and all people who are running events, creating events, activations, whatever it is, double, triple, quadruple down on those things. And I think you'll have a ton of success. Yeah.
Completely agree.
Let's talk a little. What I'm curious about that I think we can kind of close with here at the end is, it's obvious that you're very passionate about these events and community and what you're doing. What's a little bit of your planning look like leading up to all this, the creation of all this? What does that look like? What does the work you're putting in look like?
Totally. So there's so much planning, and there's so many people that go into this. And I try to resist taking too much credit for any of the events that I do, because every event that I do involves at least 4 other people who's helping me through. So I would say that that's the number one thing that I want to start with when I'm starting something out. Is I would work on my own if I could. I mean, not that I don't like people or anything like that, but it's just the nature of my personality. I'm very good at alone time, and I live alone, and I'm fine with being alone. But I do have to force myself in the beginning. The first step is finding the team. I have to find a good team, and I have to make sure that they're on board. You got to find, if you're interviewing somebody, you got to find the right talent. You got to book them. You got to find the production team. You just as much as you can up front, figure out the cast of characters. Who's on your team. And if you don't know the person, figure out what type of person you need in your market for finding them later, and find them as soon as possible. Then, with Circle Day, we started planning Circle Day 2023 after 2022 ended. So that is like a full year thing. I guess I can start with Circle Live, because that's something it's a much quicker process. It's about a 6-week process. We start off with week 1, pitching ideas to the content team. Yep. We decide on an idea, figure out who the guest is going to be. Week 2, we spend time finding that guest. Week 3, I write a script. I get feedback from the content team. Week 4, we onboard the guests. Week 5, that's sort of that final preparation stage. We're in that week right now. Actually, we're going live on Wednesday of next week, and then week 6 is live. The thing I'll say about my theater background, does it always work that perfectly? No, it doesn't. But it's important to have a script. Yeah. It's really, really important to have, even if it's a light structure of a schedule and a timeline. If you, as much as you can say, this is what I intend to do these weeks, it's not going to work perfectly, but it's good to have a plan to fall back on.
Nice. Sam, I have like a closing question on this podcast or live show that I do. I actually forgot maybe 3 weeks ago on my live show, I forgot to ask the question, but what is advice to your younger self?
I actually have this reminder on my fanny pack that I carry with me. Don't panic. If you're a Hitchhiker's Guide fan or Douglas Adams fan, you'll get that reference, but it's, I think, applicable to everybody. Don't panic. The things can go wrong, and you can have feelings about them, and you can handle those feelings, and you can come up with solutions, and you can give yourself time, but panicking is always the wrong way. Just allow yourself, learn how not to panic.
Like that. Sam, how can people find you?
Well, let's see. My Instagram, Twitter is smells like Sam Z. That's a reference to my newsletter, Smells Like. And I would say that if you want to get in touch with the Circle community and start onboarding yourself as a Circle member, check out circle.squarespace.com. Will be announcing some more Circle Day content out there if you're curious. And I think we're also going to start bringing our Circle Live content to Squarespace's help YouTube page. So if you go to YouTube and just go to Squarespace help, you can subscribe to that page.
Very cool. Sam, I'm excited for you guys this year. The event coming up in August sounds like it's going to be awesome, and sounds like it's going to just continue to grow and get better and better because you got a good head on your shoulders about this stuff.
Well, thank you so much, Matt. I really appreciate the opportunity to come in and talk about this stuff. And yeah, you asked great questions. Thank you.
Awesome. Sam, thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Everybody, thank you for listening. It's another episode of Event Marketing Redefined. We appreciate you listening, and we will see you soon.